Oilerslive Podcast. Oilerslive Podcast. Oilerslive Podcast. Oilerslive Podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here from Oilers Live for another Tuesday edition of Oilers Live. I got a couple of guests tonight. Two guys from, well, let's just call it a rival podcast. We used to hate the Ducks a lot more than we do now. Now that Kessler's gone, I guess we don't hate them quite as much as we used to. But let's be clear here. We still hate them, but I do like these guys. We got Eddy at Eddy Van Jones on Twitter. Give him a follow. And Stephen at the Hockey Boomer. And these are two of the hosts of Forever Mighty, probably the best Anaheim Ducks podcast out there, and weekly podcast. Thanks and welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, no problem. We'll let that Kessler comment slide for now. He's still on the books, so
he is still on the books. You got that right, yeah. So hey, you guys are off to a decent start for a team that nobody had. I think everybody was thinking an 0-5 start or something. So I'd say you got to be pretty happy with the way things have gone. And hey, I said in one of my tweets earlier that you guys last night were our friends. And now today you're our enemies and we do battle. But yesterday you guys pulled out a nice little win. Well done.
It's always nice to beat the Flames. Now that our home winning streak that we had that spanned over several years ended against the Flames, it's always nice to get a few wins. But yeah, the optimism wasn't high for Ducks fans this year, and to start out 2-1-0, and obviously a lot of it's on the goaltending. It's been fun, and there's been some fun things like Mason McTavish making the team and getting his first NHL goal. So that's it's been a good start, and we can't complain too much because enjoy it while it lasts, because you never know how the next 80 or so games are gonna go.
Yeah,
I got.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say we did a show on a Sunday, and I got in trouble because we did our predictions for the week, and I said the Ducks were going to over, and then we won last night, so I'm already in the doghouse. But
you shouldn't be in the doghouse, Stephen. They should be asking you to say over more often.
Yeah, no kidding, right? That's the thing. I'm just going to stick to that from now on.
Let's see how the rest of the week goes first. We'll come back to that one.
Yeah, well, hey, and sorry we cut you off, Stephen, but there weren't a lot of expectations on this team, and coming as an Oilers fan, and we went through the decade of darkness. I understand low expectations, and sometimes having low expectations is not a bad thing. The most disappointing thing as a fan is when you've got all these high hopes and then your team doesn't make the playoffs, which we also did as Oilers fans when we were getting all these high draft picks. We thought this was, the end of our drought, and it wasn't until Connor McDavid is better than a high draft pick. He's, the term's overused, but I think you can use it with him. He's a generational player, and so we're lucky there. But I totally get it, and it's nice, though, to come into a season with low expectations and have your team overperform, I think.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have, the low expectations, but also the highlights, right? Because there's some teams that going into the season that it's not going to be great, but you also know you don't really have much to look forward to. At least in Anaheim, we've got Zegras getting a full season, like a real NHL season. Jamie Drysdale has looked really great, and it's going to be fun to watch him. And then, like I had mentioned, Mason McTavish made his debut. He scores a goal. He plays a real fun style. real heavy style that obviously Ducks fans appreciate, and a little bit of candy here to help keep the medicine down of what's going to be a long year.
Yeah, I think I mean the McTavish thing is really cool. Silverberg. I shouldn't say this on Oilers Live, but I'm a fan. Like I like the guy, and if you've got a third line that's producing, right? Even I know it's early in the season, but if you can get a third line producing, that's a recipe for a good season, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing we talked about on our most recent episode is it's nice to see that Lindstrom, McTavish, Silverberg line get going so early because eventually, Comtois and Zegras have 0 points. That's not going to last. Comtois led the Ducks in scoring last year. Zegras is arguably the front runner to do it this year. Getzlaf isn't going to go pointless for the entire season. Henrique and Raquel has 2 goals, so they're going to pick it up. And it's about maybe shuffling those lines or them finding chemistry over a longer stretch of games here. But to have, that line surprise and step up has been nice. And, Lindstrom, it's a big year for him. Him and Sam Steele both accepted their qualifying offers basically to have a prove-it season to go out and get a better contract. And Isaac Lindstrom has started great, and Sam Steele finally gets in for his season debut tonight. So it's a massive game for him to come in and show what he can do because he's fallen down the pecking order pretty quickly with a lot of these guys stepping up.
Yeah, 100%. And you brought up a name that I maybe should have opened with, which is Zegras. I mean, he might not be Connor McDavid, but the kid is really, really good, and fun to watch, right? Like some of the plays he made last night were pretty sweet, he's got to be an early favorite for Calder.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping so. I've been joking about it that the best thing for the Ducks this year is to have a triple crown of win the Calder Trophy, win the Calder Cup, and win the draft lottery. I mean, those are the 3 goals that, those are the 3 kind of end game prizes that I think, as Ducks fans we're kind of looking forward to. But like you said, look, there's only one Connor McDavid. They broke the mold when they made that kid. He's just special on a level that is almost, almost mind-boggling. But the comparison, I guess you would say, is that they're offensive first players and they have a little bit of that swagger and that boldness. Zegras was making plays last night that were just ridiculous. And even, if they weren't getting pulled off, the fact that, he doesn't even have, 30 games under his belt and he's going for it. That's the kind of stuff that gets you through the year.
Well, and we knew he was going to be good. I just don't know if we expected him to be that good, to look that good. He's comfortable out there. And, you've got some good leadership on the team, right? And Getzlaf and Henrique and Raquel is a hell of a player. I mean, that's it's a good leadership core. And that might be good for a kid like him. But, absolutely. Last night, I just look, I'm going to enjoy watching the kid play. I hope he gets shut out tonight, but he's certainly fun to watch. Part of what do you guys think of the way that the organization is going right now? I mean, this is there is an Oilers connection there, of course, with Eakins.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of the direction? Is this I haven't followed. I mean, because of where the Anaheim's sitting sort of in the pecking order right now and the power rankings, what have you, I haven't really followed a lot of Ducks, but what I'm kind of curious is what the fans feel about management, coaching, etc. Are there any hashtags going out there right now among Ducks fans?
Yeah, I think it's cooled down a little bit. The last few years, it's been pretty bad, and understandably so. The Ducks have made some questionable decisions. Their management has made some questionable decisions on guys to bring back and contracts to give out. But it seems like this year there seems to be a bit of a pivot from that, in that they're embracing the rebuild and they're bringing a lot of the kids up, and waiving Derek Grant, as minuscule of a move it is, it kind of makes waves in terms of showing the direction that the organization is willing to go, because Derek Grant was a favorite of not only Bob Murray's but Dallas Eakins, and this looks like a decision from the top to say, okay, we're going to get some of the kids in here to see what they can do. So I think there's a bit more optimism there, and then obviously having talented youngsters like Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale and Mason McTavish and Shane Wright potentially on the horizon.
Already counting that one. Yeah.
You got to look forward to that, hopefully, or somebody at the top end of the upcoming draft. The future looks bright, so you can start to piece together what looks like a competitive roster, 2, 3, 4 seasons down the road. And it starts with all these kids taking steps forward and playing full seasons. So I think there's a lot more optimism than what you've seen over the last couple of years, but there still is that tense feeling about the people in charge with Dallas Eakins and Bob Murray. And, Murray's contract's up at the end of this year. And the consensus belief is that, no matter really how this season goes, Dallas Eakins is probably not back for another season next year. So it seems like a real transition year where you start the beginning of next year with potentially a new coach, a new general manager, and a complete different direction for the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I think to Eddie's point, the one thing is, as much as in the grand scheme of things, like Eddie said, like waiving a player like Derek Grant is peanuts. But as much as in hockey, we talk about things being bigger than their move, right? Adding certain guys, signing certain guys, they have these bigger meanings. To see a guy who, as Eddie said, has been an organizational favorite, became a little bit of a meme a couple years ago with him just kind of showing up out of nowhere and playing well. To see them make a decision like waiving him, I think is a little bit of some, I don't know, a little bit of crumbs, I guess, to the fan base, because I think, second, maybe only to how far down the standings the Ducks have fallen, the biggest loss, in my opinion, has been any semblance of trust that this fan base has in the organization, top to bottom. Because, it has felt like they've either been, lying or idiots as far as where this team has been the last few years. And, they're neither is a great place to be. So this year there seems to be a little bit clarity, and hopefully the organization as a whole, regardless of the people in charge, can earn a little bit of that trust and goodwill back with the fan base.
So, and I know you don't speak on behalf of all the fans, but how did you feel about the Getzlaf re-signing? I mean, there was talk about him going somewhere, right? And was that sort of like something good for the fans, or was it kind of like, that's old school now and we're ready for something new, or how'd you feel about that? I mean, he's got to be a fan favorite, right? So, how's that look from a overall?
Yeah, I think the majority of fans are happy that he's back. Like, we would have understood. I think most of us would have understood if he had have gone at the deadline last year. There was a rumored trade that he was going to go to Vegas, and the return just wasn't good enough for the Ducks. And Getzlaf was never really seeking a trade. He's always said if the organization wants to move him, he will do what's best for the organization. But he always wanted to stay in Anaheim. So I think the general reception on him resigning was good and received positively. There's some people out there, like there always is going to be, that are kind of ready to move on to that next wave and see Getzlaf as that kind of final piece that's, attached to the good old days for the Ducks when they're going far in the playoffs to the Western Conference Final. He's really like the last old guard piece of that team. So there are some out there, but for me, it would just hurt to see him play in another jersey. I want to see him do well, and I would cheer for him whatever team he goes to. But it's just watching him pull on a different jersey has a weird feeling to it. So I think a lot of people are happy that he's back.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is at a certain point, he's going to have played his last game for a Duck, and whether that is at the trade line or in the off season, right, when it gets announced that he's done, like, I'm fully prepared to weep. Like, he's one of my favorite players of all time. I think he's in a lot of ways, one of the most important players, if not the most important player in franchise history. So, I think he's earned the right to be here as long as he decides he wants to be. And if he goes into the office and, says, hey, maybe move me around a little bit, let's see if I can take another run at it, I think he's earned that as well. I think in my head, I kind of hope maybe he ends up in Tampa Bay and he gets to play with Perry and Maroon again, which would be a lot of fun for me. But, at a certain point, it's just, he can't play forever, right? He's not Chris Chelios. Like, he's not just going to play until he's 80. So, at a certain point, he's just going to take a step away, and it's going to be different. But I think, seeing guys like Zegras, seeing guys like Drysdale, it makes it encouraging. It doesn't feel like it's going to be nothing for 5 years.
Yeah. You said something that really sort of makes sense, which is, it's kind of Getzlaf's call. I mean, he's earned that right? I mean, there's a few players, only a few players in this league that have, given their heart and soul to a single team, and he's one of them. And he didn't just do it, as a third liner. I mean, he was, a top guy all of his career. In fact, I mean, he's nothing to scoff at now, right? And he's on the waning end of his career, maybe, but he certainly deserves it. The one that comes to mind is Shane Doan in Arizona. Guys like that, like, they've given everything they have to a team. They've, won championships. They've been there. They're, I mean, he's, for greater part of his career, he was, other than last year, right, closing in on that point per game all the time. He's outstanding. I love watching him when he's not playing the Oilers. Hell of a player. There's a theme here, if you can't tell. But no, I 100% agree with you. You're right. I mean, he's certainly earned that right. There was rumor, or maybe wishful thinking on behalf of Oilers fans, that he might come and sign in Edmonton. The guy we hate the most, Corey Perry, outside of Kessler, we'd also, some of us were hoping he might come. He just seems to have that knack for getting to the finals every year. I don't know if he's betting on the right horse or what he's doing, although Tampa Bay's kind of had a bit of a lull to start the season, although that looks like they might be able to play some salary cap magic again with Kucherov out. I don't know what the final word is on him. I didn't look it up today, but it sounds like he's out for the season, only to come back for a Stanley Cup run. We'll see. Yeah. So, okay, guys. So you got Connor McDavid and Draisaitl against you tonight. Stolar's playing in net because Gibson was in last night, right?
Yeah. Stolar's is in. Had a good performance against Minnesota, and I think we're all excited to see some more reps from him, because it's been, I guess, for the last 4 or 5 years, Gibson and Miller, and now there's a bit of a different look there, and we know Gibby can't play 60, 65 games. And that be the recipe of success for the Ducks. They need a guy who can step in and play 25, 30 games and do what Stolarz did, even though they lost that game. He had 41 saves in that game and looked excellent. So they need performances like that. And you're going against arguably one of the best lines in hockey right now in McDavid. And then you've got Draisaitl and Puljujarvi, who both started the year really well. So they're going to need him to do well. And they're going to need him to do well all season. So it's nice to see him get another start. And Gibby's going to need this rest every now and then.
And who's going to be up against that line? Is it Lindholm and Drysdale that'll be up against Draisaitl and McDavid?
There's a real good chance Aikens just throws everything he has at him and sees what sticks. I mean, at this point, the best bet might be Getzlaf, but I don't know that I want Getzlaf chasing Connor McDavid around the ice, for 20 minutes or anything like that. So, I don't know. I mean, look, like we said, Connor McDavid's special, and Draisaitl's a hell of a player on his own right. There are guys on that team on the Oilers that they're going to make it hard, but it's kind of okay, I guess, in a way, because you're going to get to see what some of these kids are made of. You're going to get to kind of see which one of them are gamers and which one of them, are going to at least do what they can to make it as hard on, like Eddie said, one of the best lines in hockey and, arguably the best player in hockey. So, there's really not a whole lot I think that Anaheim can do. I think it's going to have to take everybody doing something, right? And the one thing I guess you would say for Anaheim's perspective is the power plays look pretty good. And the power play is going to be their best shot at getting something, on the board against the team that'll probably have them in their own zone most of the night. So,
yeah. I mean, obviously, the power play is going to be big for both teams. Who's on the Anaheim first power play unit? Is Zegras made it on there yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe Zegras and Drysdale are both on the first power play unit. Getzlaf's now in the Ovechkin shooting type role, which is new for him this
Oh
year.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they've moved some guys around, but Zegras is pretty much a mainstay on that top unit. I think McTavish would featured on there every now and then as a net front guy, but they've been kind of tinkering with it throughout the start of the season. And but yeah, Zegras will be a big part of that.
Yeah, it seems kind of like the two pairs that are kind of getting switched between the different groups, because you've got, like Eddie said, you've got a Drysdale and Zegras and Getzlaf, and then the other one right now seems to be Fowler and Shattenkirk and Silverberg. And so the other one is a combination of Troy Terry, Ricard Raquel, Max Jones, or McTavish, and
Comtoine Raquel would be on the first unit.
Yeah, and those are kind of the ones that they kind of move around a little bit, because I think the top of that power play, the umbrella, as it were, is pretty set.
Yeah. And so, do you know what offhand what the percentage is for them right now?
36.
36%. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, and who's been the leader on that power play? If we're watching.
Yeah, I mean, it's been Silverberg so far, and Shattenkirk and Fowler. Fowler, I think his 3 assists have all been power play assists. He's got 1 in each game. Shattenkirk's picked up a power play assist, and I think Silverberg has a couple power play points too. So it really has been that second unit that's been able to get things going. Like we mentioned earlier, Zegras come to our point list, so you're hoping that first unit can get going at some point, and it's bound to with the talent that you have on it. But it really has been that second unit that's kind of gotten it done. I mean, Fowler's power play goal last night was a buzzer beater with 1 second to go on the power play. So you're getting it as tight as you can to padding the numbers there for the Ducks power play. But it will really be interesting to see if that first unit can get going.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a couple comments. I'm just say hello to a couple people that are watching tonight. My friend Naim, who has the largest Indigenous rookie hockey card collection in the world. He's watching tonight. He says, hello, everybody. Amy says, we'll be nice to you Duckers if you give us a tender. We need one at trade deadline. We got Robert on there. He's looking forward to the game this evening. Always good to catch an Oilers live stream. And James says, I don't think you'll want to trade power play chances with the Oilers.
No, I don't think anybody wants to do that. I don't think there's, I mean, I'm pretty sure Darnell Nurse shot like 75% on the power play last year. And,
and he's not on the first unit, right? So
great.
Yeah,
I'm glad you have that
Tyson
guy on
Barrie
your second unit. That's fun.
So I assume you guys don't tune into every Oilers game or all of them, just like I don't get a chance to watch every Ducks game. But if you guys want to know who to watch tonight, there's the obvious guys in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Everybody knows them. But some of the new Oilers this year, Zach Hyman, who came over from Toronto, his last couple of games, he's only scored 1 goal going in through the first 2. And his first goal was on the power play. Beauty pass from Draisaitl, just a little tip in. But Hyman is relentless, and he's fast, and he had a couple opportunities in the game against Calgary, which was the game before Anaheim played them. And he's fun to watch. So he's playing on our second line tonight with Nugent Hopkins and Yamamoto. In Yamamoto, I know, Stephen, you're from American by right. Eddie, you're Canadian. Is that right? Where are you from, by the way?
From London. So
okay.
keeping an eye on Evan Bouchard tonight.
Yeah. So he's a guy. But I was going to say, so Yamamoto is actually an American player. He's from Washington State. I think he's from Spokane originally, and he's a good little player. He's tiny. He plays with Hyman and Nugent Hopkins on the second line, and so those guys are exciting to watch. Bouchard, of course, as you mentioned, if you're from London, big London Knights fan, a guy that I've had on here many times on the show is a season ticket holder for the London Knights, and London Knights have, of course, got a great history of pumping out talent into the NHL. And Evan Bouchard is no different. He's been getting more minutes than expected. This is really his rookie year this year, but he's got a bomb of a shot that finds its way to the net. And I've said before, I think he's going to kill somebody at some point with that shot. Like it is, it is just brutal. Like it is really nice. Of course, you're going to watch Nurse. This is probably the most complete our team has been for a lot of years. And I don't know, I think it's way too early to say that it's a Stanley Cup team, but it's certainly a better team than last year with the additions of Hyman and a couple of guys from out east like Fogle. And then Derek Ryan, who was a Calgary Flame last year, is now playing on our third line. So we've never had in Edmonton, I don't know when you could say, real forward depth. And if we had which you guys might enjoy tonight for Zegras and McTavish and these guys is if we have a weak spot, it's both on goaltending, which is yet to be decided because Mike Smith, of course, is gets the seniors discount on Tuesdays at the supermarket. So if he plays, if he continues to play like he's been playing, and he played last year, nobody expected anything from him last year, and he was lights out. But if he plays like that again this season, then the Oilers, will be laughing. But the defense has aged a little bit. They've added CC and they've added Duncan Keith, which everybody knows Duncan Keith. His fancy stats, if you're into that, weren't great in Chicago the last couple seasons. He certainly does some things that only a guy like Duncan Keith can do, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. There's no doubt. So it's though right now on paper it looks like a weakness in terms of defense, like an actual defensive game. All those guys can move the puck. Bouchard, Keith, CC, I'm not so sure, but Darnell Nurse, Tyson Barrie. So like there's 4 or 5 defensemen that are capable of moving the puck up ice, but it's whether they can win the battles down low and keep the puck out of the net that might benefit a young team. With a couple of flashy guys like Anaheim, we're going to find out.
Yeah, I would say Duncan Keith, the one thing, and people put as much stock as they want to in this, but he brings more, I think, than just what he does on the ice, right? Like you're looking at a guy who's pretty much won everything. To bring him into that locker room, I think that's something they really needed, to have a guy around that can do that, especially for that young blue line too, where you've got guys like Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie's not young, but he's still at an age where I think he can benefit from playing, on a daily basis with a guy like Duncan Keith. So, we'll see come playoff time how much of an impact Duncan Keith has. And obviously he's not going to carry them to the Stanley Cup just based off his experience, but it's something I think that's going to help them when it comes to tough games and difficult stretches. And when you get into those, really must-win games in the playoffs where that intangible value that he brings is going to come out.
Yeah. You said something though that is true. And Oilers fans have recognized over the last couple seasons when you watch guys like, Corey Perry and Maroon we're talking about, right? And some of these guys that, have the experience in the league and somehow make it to the finals every year, despite not being maybe, at the top of their game. And Duncan Keith brings that type of experience for sure. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think the thing for me is Duncan Keith or Corey Perry or your Ryan Getzlaus, like we were talking about. I think the thing that I think sometimes can get forgotten is, like on a big picture, 82 game basis, there are going to be nights where their age is a problem. They're a step off, or, on back-to-backs where they're just not able to recover as well physically. And those are very real. But I also think that there is still a good chance that Duncan Keith can go out there in a game and have a big shift and make a big impact. He's a smart guy. He's a great skater. Those are the kinds of things that are going to allow him to be effective in big moments or, really when he needs to lean into it. And that team is young enough and skilled enough, especially up front, I think, that there should be an expectation that it's not going to be his job to get them there. It's going to be his job to get them farther than they've been. And like you said with Mike Smith, the thing with Mike Smith is it's a Jekyll and Hyde. He either looks like he should win the Vezina or he looks like he should be in the ECHL. Like, it's just one of those things sometimes with him. But when he's at the top of his game, he's athletic, he's aggressive, he's feisty. He gets in your head. He's hitting guys on the shin. Like, he's doing all that stuff that's fun. All that stuff that, the guys in front of him want to play for him. So, I think for Edmonton, I think it's one of those things where it's an 82 game season, but there's an expectation that they're going to be playing well past that. And that's when some of these guys are going to really have to prove their mettle.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. And I think you're right, 100%. You just got to get through the regular season, right? And that's if you can do that, and not so many injuries, which brings me to this thought, right? Like, I know we're joking about Wright and being on the Ducks next season. Like, is there an expectation at all? Like, do you still expect the Ducks to make a run for the playoffs, or is that kind of out of your head as Ducks fans? Or I know you joke about it, but we joked about it as Oilers fans. But every year we'd go into every season as Oilers fans and be disappointed by about game 20 that it wasn't looking so hot. Where are you guys at in that, or like as a fan base? What's a real expectation there?
I think most people don't have any high expectations. Like, the fact that everybody is so impressed that we're 2-1 and could have stolen a point from that game in Minnesota where they scored with 8 seconds to go. It's just as impressive a start as I think we expected. Obviously, Zegras and Comtois haven't got off to any points yet, so there is some.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, you're able to grind out 2 wins from great goaltending and some depth scoring. So there is some optimism there that if that can continue and your top guys can get going, then you can steal a few games here if the goaltending holds up. But I think over the long stretch of the season, I think most people realize that the Ducks are probably going to finish in the bottom 5 of the league. The depth just isn't there. The scoring talent and consistency isn't there. You rarely go from a team who finished near dead last in scoring to a team that makes the playoffs the next season. Even if the special teams are for real and the Ducks can improve their power play to middle of the pack, I don't know if that's enough. And then you add in the fact that they have guys on expiring contracts that, how detrimental is it almost for the Ducks to be good at the trade deadline, where you then have to make that decision to keep a Ricard Raquel, to keep a Josh Manson. Hampus Lindholm's situation might be a little bit different, but there are teams that are going to be interested in him. So that comes into it too, because if you're in a playoff spot or within touching distance for playoff spot at the deadline, you got to make a serious decision there on what team you think you are, or what team you think you can be next year with these guys, and making those decisions on their contracts.
So outside of Zegras, obviously, who's not playing this year for Anaheim that you guys are excited to, the up and coming prospect?
I think the big one's obviously Hunter Drew, right, Ed? He's the no, I mean, you've got you got Jacob Perreault and Braden Tracy are kind of down there right now. Olin Zellweger looks like he's got a chance to be special. Sasha Puyastov, Pastuyov. God, I'm gonna mess his name up forever. But there are a couple of players. There's some guys like that are kind of looking to be part of this next push, and I think within a year or two, some of those guys it's going to be official if they're a real deal or not, because they'll be on this lineup. But I do think part of the problem is there's still gaps at the high end of talent on this team that some of these kids can develop into, but we all know the draft, you don't go 10 for 10 every year or anything like that. So there's going to be the next draft, and maybe even the draft after that's going to have a big say in what kind of heights this team can reach once Zegras and Drysdale have kind of reached a point of being able to impact the game on a nightly basis.
It's an inverse, I feel like, of the path that your team, the Oilers, took to get to where they are, right? And depth scoring and having that depth talent has been the issue, but you have the superstars, you have the McDavid, the Draisaitl. The Ducks are almost at the opposite point now, where they've got a lot of these prospects already, the Joneses, Steele, guys that can step in, Fillereau, Comtois as well. Perot could be a top 6 forward. Same with Pastuya. But you got these guys that will fill out the middle six, can get onto a top line. But outside of Zegras, you don't have that dynamic talent. And Zegras still has to go a long ways to get to that point. He has the potential to do it. But that's where adding a guy like Shane Wright or Brad Lambert or some forward or even defenseman at the top end of the draft coming up is what the Ducks need at this point. You can rarely get a player of that caliber outside of the draft. And that's why this year and next year is so pivotal for them. It's not that we want them to do bad, but for them to get a player like that, that just takes you to that next level. And to add Shane Wright to the prospect pool, you then become a legitimate contender, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing, right? And you look at a team that we hate worse than the Anaheim Ducks, which is the Calgary Flames. They middled in the league for however long now, right? Like but the problem of course with Calgary is they've had a couple of players with high expectations, and so there's high expectations every year with Calgary Flames fans, but then they, other than the 1 year where they were close to winning the President's Trophy, and but they got knocked out in 4 by Colorado, right? It's kind of like they just sit there and they never get a great draft pick, right? They don't. They're always down at the middle. It's hard to build a team that way. Like, I remember, and in fact, I lived in Calgary for 10, 11 years, and they would make fun of me as an Oilers fan because of the rebuild, right? But Edmonton would, like, they talked about doing an actual rebuild, which means to put put everything on hold and not go for it, right? Like, try to get some draft picks and some prospects and do a little bit of shop a few guys at the deadline and do that sort of thing and hope that you find the right formula to success. And they didn't do that, right? And there is a part of me that says, like, you could be that middle of the road team and make the playoffs every second year, right? And never get past the first round, right? And I'll love you for it if you're not the Edmonton Oilers, right? like there is nothing that I love more than watching Calgary just sit there and fail miserably come playoff time, right? But they did it to themselves. Like they've got this expectation that they're going to go all the way every year with like a mediocre lineup, and they don't. Part of this is me just bashing the Flames because I do it for fun, but the other part is but the other part is honestly that I think Anaheim in some way is saying just that right now, right? Which is it's time for a rebuild. We don't necessarily have to like tell everybody we're on a rebuild, but we're not going to put all the money into it. We're not going to go after the big name free agents. We're going to go with the team we've got and make an effort. And if we come up short, then that's great. We'll be in the lottery for, a Shane Wright and possibly the next year for a Connor Bedard or something like that, right? And have, something to build on there. I have nothing, there's nothing wrong with that in my mind. As long as it's not like the 10-year hiatus that the Oilers had, then as a organization or as a fan base, you can be all right with that. I'll tell you guys, you never want to go through what we went through.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think you can look at the East and kind of see almost like mirror visions of the other version, right? Because like you have Calgary that, there's a couple years too many between their best guys, right? They had your Monahans or maybe even I'm thinking of like Backlund, and they're a little bit older, but they're still good players and they're effective players and they can be a competitive top 6. But then you have your Tkachuk, and he's the one, but he's a couple years too young. Like their timelines just don't match. And I think you can look at the Flyers in the East and see the same thing. And as far as, kind of the Oilers taking their lumps for so long, you can look at the Sabres. They haven't even gotten to the point yet where it's like, all right, we're starting to really, really turn this around. I mean, they did all that
Who knew Jack Eichel was the problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's his issue all along. It's damn Americans.
Has he been talked about in Anaheim? Like,
Oh,
That
yeah.
was our entire summer was Jack Eichel rumors and kind of figuring out what was true and what's not. I mean, it's still lingering, right? With
I'd heard something, but I know I heard L.A. too was one of the
Yeah.
an L.A. conversation. Would that suck for you guys? Like, would
Yes, absolutely.
Now, who do you hate?
'Cause
Who do you hate more? Sorry, we're going down a different path here. Who do you hate more, San Jose or L.A.? Or does it
LA.
change?
Yeah,
on every season?
it's LA. I think for everybody, and it's not really close. Like, you hate San Jose as well, but LA is just kind of a different type of hate. It's
it's like a Calgary Flames type of hate. I know exactly that. Hey guys,
It's a proximity thing.
look, I brought this for you guys here.
There we go. We love to see it. That's good stuff.
So I the last season we were full on, like, no COVID, no anything. I was at I had season tickets to the Oilers, and I went. Of course, I'm at the Anaheim game, so instead of wearing, that's the only game I don't wear an Oilers jersey to. I wear this shirt, and it's from my friend over at Beer League Heroes. And I so I wore this shirt. Yeah, I had the odd Oilers fan look and point and laugh, but the Anaheim fans that were at the game, there weren't a ton, to be fair, right? But it's not too surprising. But there were still Anaheim fans there. They all, like, I must have taken a few pictures with, like, they loved it. It's good, and it's all in good fun, and I mean. I don't. Maybe you guys do know, but there's not really a more hated player here than Ryan Kessler.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, Corey Perry was close. Corey Perry was close, but Kessler definitely takes the cake. And you could even put, I don't know. Maybe people would argue that with me. Maybe somebody who's listening or watching in the chat. See if there's another player, but Ryan Kessler's got to be up there in our top 10 villains.
Oh, he was wonderful, man. Like, he is 100% someone that you hate unless he's in your squad.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like Anaheim's had a good run of those guys. Chris Pronger was the same way. You guys know that. Like, God, he's the best on your team, but he's on the other side. You want to wring his neck. And Kessler's that kind of way. And, obviously not as great a player as Pronger was, but still, he really makes you
come to
question.
Think of it. You guys had a lot of assholes on your team over the years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite things in the world. Like, it truly is. Like, I love, like Matthew Tkachuk, like, I hate to say it. I'm sorry to everybody who's listening, but, like, he's one of my favorite players in the league right now, man. Because he just makes everybody so mad all the time. And he does it the entire time with this grin. And you're like, I want to knock the teeth out of your face. But he's just wonderful, man. I love him. I love those kind of players.
I'm not going to say Tkachuk's my favorite player, but I will tell you.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
I do always say, I've said it on the show many times. The players that I hate the most are the ones I'd love to have on my team the most, with maybe the exception of Kessler. But outside of that,
well, nobody wants Kessler now.
No. Yeah. And it drove me nuts that they did. I didn't watch it out of spite, but they did some Sportsnet show or whatever. I thought they were just trolling Oilers fans with Kess's house or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's. I don't know if that lasted. I don't know if that, I think that lasted 3 episodes.
Was it? Yeah. Okay.
Disappeared pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the ego to go with the asshole qualities for sure. But
it's fight Ryan Johansson in the off season. Like, the guy's a legend.
I
get it. I get why everybody hates him, man. He's a perfect guy to hate, So.
Yeah. Well, guys, hey, we're gonna wind it down because we got a game to watch tonight. So let's get a couple. Well, you know what? First, before you go, because I'm curious. Now, you go by the name Forever Mighty. obviously as a homage to the name Mighty Ducks, which no longer exists. In fact, there are, believe it or not, hockey fans out there that don't even realize that there was a Mighty Ducks at one point. And I'll tell you, and my dad, who's passed away, I love him dearly, but he was totally against the name when it came, like a lot of traditional hockey guys. My dad hated the name. He's like, this is a joke, right? Like after a Disney show, anyway, so they did that. They got rid of the name. Who started Forever Mighty? How long you guys been around? And what's like the name? Was it pre Mighty Ducks, or obviously it had to be after the Mighty Ducks, right? Because the Forever Mighty part.
I'm the rookie on the team, so I'll take this one.
Yeah. We've been going. I think in March will be 4 years, so definitely well past the Mighty Ducks era, and unfortunately, right at the tail end of the Ducks' success. I think our first season was the last time the Ducks made the playoffs, and they got swept in 4 against San Jose in the first round. So, not the greatest of times to start, but it was me and one of our other hosts, Pat, who kind of started doing it, and Pat used to do a NHL podcast with his longtime buddy Jason, and then Jason came on board, and then we just brought Stephen on last year to kind of bring in a new face and help out with scheduling and everything, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's been tough navigating this time for the Ducks, and it's almost better to kind of have a show to get everybody on and fans to kind of talk about it and kind of go through it all together, right? It's easy to enjoy it and get on the show and when you're winning and everything's going well. But, up until this season, we've been doing post-game shows. So we were live after every game, going over some pretty abysmal games every now and then. I think there was the second season, the Ducks hadn't won in 19 games. I think that was the stretch. So we were live for pretty much all of those 19 games. That was an interesting stretch.
How does it feel? How does it feel to get a win after that? I mean, that's like winning the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
I remember when the Sabres, when they won that game. I actually have it. I have the recording of the Sabres after their long losing streak there. And oddly enough, I know a lot of Sabres fans. I know all 4 of them, and
good guys.
They are good guys, and they were pretty excited about that. Like honestly, that was crazy. But I mean, what was that like going into that game?
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of just go with the meme at that point, right? Like when it gets that bad and you've gone so long without getting a win, you kind of just try and have fun with it at that point, which that's all you can kind of do. And vaguely remembering when Sabres fans were going through that's kind of what you do when you get past like the 10 or 15 game mark. You just kind of have fun with how long can this last. You start looking forward to the draft and what the light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the season. So, but it was nice. Obviously, you're gonna win. That shows a little bit more amped up. You're kind of hyping up that win a little bit more than it is. I can't remember who we won against, but it was probably a team also mired in a losing streak or in their own troubles or injury problems. So it wasn't a pretty win by any means, but you love to see it when it's been that long without one.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, I assume you guys have both been to a Ducks game, like at what's the name of the arena?
It's the Honda Center now.
The Honda,
Arrowhead Pond, which was
Pond,
better.
That's right.
But now it's the Honda Center.
The Honda Center, and what's it like? Like what if you had some advice for anybody going out to Anaheim to watch a game, what's that? What would you suggest they do? Maybe a pre-game dinner and then.
I mean, look, right across the street from the pond is, a nice little collection of restaurants and bars, and there's a lot of fans over there. And, a little bit away, there's this place called the Tilted Kilt, which is just, bar restaurant kind of thing. And it's always a good time, stuff like that. But look, if you're in Anaheim and you don't get down there often, spend the first half of the day at Disneyland. That's the best way to do it. It guarantees you're going to have a great day. So,
start the day with a positive, and then end it.
Yeah, exactly. I did that one time. I did that one time. We had a game to go to. So me and my sister were like, oh, screw it, let's go to Disneyland. And we had a great time. And then we go to the game, and it was a playoff game. And it was the first Game 7 that they lost in that streak against Detroit.
No.
And man, after the real high of a nice day at Disneyland with my sister, it ended up real bummed on the way home. So,
oh well, I mean, you know what? My wife and I, when the Oilers were the year they lost to Anaheim in the playoffs, a couple of years
don't
back.
remember that.
yeah. Kessler. We got on a plane and flew out to San Jose to watch the game that the Oilers lost 8-0, was it, or whichever it was. Anyway, we were there. There were lots of. I mean, the great thing, and I've watched the Oilers in a lot of barns around the league, but Oilers fans show up. Like, we've got a really big fan base, a strong fan base. In fact, NBC last year or the year before said that more tickets are sold when the Oilers are in town than any other team, which surprised me. I don't know where those numbers came from, because I would have figured it'd be like a Toronto or a Boston. But anyway, regardless to say, I've been to a lot of games around the league, and when the Oilers are there, they show up. Like, there's a lot of fans, and we've taken over all the bars right by the is it still the HP Center? Or no, it's SAP Center now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was all Oilers fans in there. It was crazy. Walk into the building, buy a 50-50, and they told us, we love it when Canadian teams are in there because the 50-50 is like 10 times the amount. And then we got blown out. And, of course, we're sitting right next to probably the most annoying Sharks fan, around. I've been to a lot. I've been to a few Sharks games, actually. And usually the fans are pretty good. They're a fun bunch out there, all the tech guys and that, right? But this guy was just killing me. And of course we got totally blown out of the water. It was a lot, it's a lot of fun, but it's a long ways to travel for for a playoff loss. Yeah. Have you guys made it out to Edmonton to watch a game?
No, it's on the list. I mean, all the games that I've gone to, other than going to Anaheim to see a few, because I'm closest is Toronto. So
yeah.
That's kind of fallen off the wayside with how much tickets are now to get into Scotiabank Arena. And also every time I've gone, the Ducks have lost. So that's kind of even when the Leafs were bad.
You're
lost.
Close to Toronto. You should just go to Buffalo. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, honestly, I went to watch the Oilers in Buffalo. And I got on the center line about, I want to say, 16, 17 rows up, so you can't get a better ticket, right? I paid $15 US. and as it turns out, this is my favorite part of the story, I overpaid, because I got there, I was all excited that I paid $15 US, and I sit down. And I go to the guy beside me, him and his girlfriend were there. I said, hey, man, I got these tickets for $15 US. And he says, we got ours for $5. Like, I hope
giving them away at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like, I mean, or go to Arizona, obviously. I
think if you go to Arizona, you can play.
Yeah, they'll let you play. It's like an away game for them every time they're there. Especially when the Canadian teams are in town.
Well, they're so far away from Quebec. How can you expect their fans to travel?
Exactly. Hey guys, all right, let's close it up. We'll start with Stephen, prediction on tonight.
Oh God, I can't get in trouble with everybody.
No,
you know what? I will.
Cheering for Anaheim.
I think I'll just go ahead and say it is a 2-1 Ducks win in overtime.
Wow.
I'm going to say they pull off the impossible and hold Oilers to 1 goal. We'll see. All
right.
It's a big night from Anthony Stolarz inbound.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Have you seen the movie Slapshot? He'd be like the goalie there all over the place. Yeah. All right, Eddie?
I got to stick to our prediction that we did on our last show. I think the Ducks end up losing this one, but I think it'll be close. A 4-2 game. Last goal's an empty netter. Ducks make it close, but... Can't scrape it out, unfortunately. I'd love to see a win, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a tough game for them last night, and love or hate Calgary, they do play a rough game, which is a Sutter style.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I like that 4-2, Eddie. I'll go with that 4-2 Oilers tonight. I think they're the favorites. I'm not sure what the odds are, but
Probably not
anyway,
great.
yeah. Should have a disclaimer in the if you go and bet on his game, don't take my picks.
Yeah, I'm hoping Stoli has a good night because if he does well, you guys might just try to keep him up there, and maybe you can put a pick in somebody's pocket when you send him back.
Yeah.
You sure you guys want him back in Edmonton?
Yeah, I don't. We'll see. All right, guys. We're gonna shut it down. I've got this thing where I like my guests to have the last word, and then I shut it down. So, Stephen or Eddie, you can choose. And as soon as you say good night, I'm gonna throw on the end screen, and we're out of here. So, go ahead, one of you take it, and let's finish off tonight. And thanks. By the way, first off, to everybody watching and listening. This, of course, was Eddie at Eddie Van Jones on Twitter, and Stephen at the Hockey Boomer on Twitter. Give these guys a follow, and at Forever Mighty FM, I believe, is the podcast handle on Twitter. Give them a follow as well. They are Ducks fans. We'll forgive them for that. They seem like pretty good guys. I hope you guys have a good season. Not too good, but but half decent. Thanks for joining me. Jump ball. Who wants to take it?
Thanks everybody. Thanks for having us, Michael. We had a lot of fun, and got to say go Ducks before we call it a night. But everyone have a great night.